It was a cold, gray morning when the church bells tolled for the funeral of my husband, David. The sky was overcast, and the air carried a weight that pressed down on my chest. People gathered in black coats, whispering condolences, casting pitying glances at me as I sat in the front pew with my hands trembling in my lap. My heart was shattered into pieces. At least, that's what I thought. Losing David felt like the ground had vanished beneath me. The coffin was draped in white lilies, his favorite flower, and I could still smell their strong fragrance filling the air. My mind replayed memories, our first meeting at the cafe, his charming smile, the promises we had made under the stars. Tears streamed down my face as the priest's words echoed. We commend his soul to God. I couldn't believe it. David was gone. After the burial, people hugged me, whispered words like, "Stay strong," and offered me casseroles I knew I would never touch. I felt hollow, like a shell of the woman I had once been. As I got into the car to return home, I pulled out my phone, desperate for distraction. That's when I saw it, one new message notification. My breath caught in my throat. The sender's name made my blood run cold. It was David. I froze, my thumb hovering over the screen. How could this be? My husband was supposed to be 6 feet under, and yet his name flashed before me like a cruel trick. I opened the message with shaking hands. I am still alive. Trust no one. My entire body went numb. My first thought was that someone was playing a sick prank. But the way the message was written, the familiarity of the words, it was exactly how David used to text me when something serious was happening.
Short. Urgent.
Mysterious. I couldn't breathe. My heart pounded so loudly, I could hear it echoing in my ears. I looked around at the cemetery parking lot, half expecting him to step out from the shadows. But no one came. On the drive home, the words haunted me. Still alive, trust no one. My mind raced. What did he mean? Who could I not trust? Our family? Our friends? Someone close to me? When I reached home, I locked every door and sat at the kitchen table staring at my phone. Should I reply? What if it was someone else trying to manipulate me? What if it was a scammer? But deep down, my gut whispered something terrifying. It was him. I typed slowly. David? Is this really you? For 10 agonizing minutes, nothing. My hands shook as I clutched the phone, staring at the blank screen. Then, another message.
Yes.
Don't tell anyone. Not even family. I will explain soon. They can't know I contacted you. Tears spilled down my cheeks again, but this time not from grief. This time from confusion and fear. My husband was supposed to be dead. I had touched his cold hand in the hospital, seen the doctors shake their heads. I had watched them cover his body with a sheet. I had kissed his forehead goodbye. How could this be possible? The next days were torture. Everyone treated me like a grieving widow, while secretly, I was living in a nightmare of secrets. At night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, clutching my phone in case another message arrived. During the day, I forced a smile and accepted casseroles, all while my mind screamed with questions. On the third night after the funeral, another message came. Meet me at the old cabin by Miller's Lake. Midnight. Come alone. Trust no one. My heart almost stopped. The cabin, it was a place only David and I knew about. Years ago, when we were dating, we had stumbled upon that abandoned little wooden cabin during a hike. It became our secret hideaway whenever we wanted to escape the world. Hardly anyone knew about it. I didn't sleep that night. At exactly 11:30 p.m., I grabbed my car keys, wrapped myself in a black coat, and drove through the foggy roads toward the lake. My hands were sweating on the steering wheel, my heart pounding with every passing mile. Was I about to see my husband again? Or was I walking straight into a trap? When I reached the cabin, everything was eerily silent. The trees loomed like shadows, and the wind howled through the broken shutters. My flashlight beam cut through the darkness as I stepped inside, dust crunching under my shoes. David, I whispered. For a moment, there was only silence. And then, I heard footsteps behind me. I spun around, my flashlight shaking, and the beam landed on him. David.
Alive.
I gasped, covering my mouth, my knees almost giving way. He looked thinner, paler, with a scruffy beard, but it was him. His eyes met mine with the same intensity one remembered. "It's really you," I whispered. Before I could run into his arms, he grabbed me gently but firmly.
Sure.
"You can't be seen here. They'll be watching you."
Who?
I demanded, my voice trembling. "David, what is happening? You're supposed to be dead." "I had no choice," he said, his voice low and urgent. "It was the only way to keep you safe."
My head spun.
Safe from what? From who? He looked toward the window, as though expecting someone to burst through the door at any second. From the people I trusted the most. From our so-called friends. Even from family. I felt the blood drain from my face. He wasn't making sense. But the fear in his eyes was real. I stared at him, my hands trembling, my chest heaving as though the air itself had turned heavy. "David, this doesn't make sense. You died in front of me."
I saw it.
"I felt it. How could you fake something like that?" He sighed, his face etched with pain. "I'm sorry, Claire. I never wanted you to go through that. But if I hadn't, you'd be in the ground right beside me." My breath caught in my throat. "What are you saying?" He looked me dead in the eye. "The people behind my death wanted both of us gone. They were going to make it look like an accident. But I got word beforehand. Faking my death was the only way to survive long enough to fight back. And to protect you." I staggered backward, my head spinning. "Who?
Who would want that?"
We don't have enemies, David. We live a normal life." His jaw clenched, his eyes darkening. "You think we were living a normal life, but we weren't. My business deals, my so-called partners, even people in our own circle, they weren't who they seemed." I shook my head violently.
No.
"That's not possible. These are people who've been in our home, at our table, at our wedding anniversary parties. They hugged me at your funeral." "Exactly," he said bitterly. "The ones smiling at you are the ones plotting behind your back. That's why I said, trust no one." My body went cold. I thought of his brother, James, who had been by my side ever since the hospital. Of my best friend, Laura, who kept checking in on me. Of the neighbors who had brought flowers. Could it be true? Was one of them involved? I wanted to scream, but all that came out was a whisper.
Why didn't you tell me?
Why leave me in the dark like this? David's eyes softened. He stepped closer, reaching for my trembling hands. Because the less you knew, the safer you were. If they believed I was dead, and you were grieving, they wouldn't come after you. But the moment you knew the truth, you'd become a target. A chill ran down my spine. His words made sense, but they also shattered me. I had mourned him, suffered sleepless nights, cried myself empty, and all along, he had been alive. I pulled my hands away, tears streaming down my face. "Do you have any idea what you put me through? Do you have any idea how it felt to bury my husband?" He flinched, guilt flickering across his face. "Claire, I know. And I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. But right now, we don't have time for this. They're closing in." My stomach twisted. "Closing in? On me?" "Yes," he said, his voice grim. "I overheard them. They think I left behind evidence, proof of what they've been doing. They're searching for it. And since they can't find me, they'll come after you." I staggered back, my knees weak. "Evidence of what?" He looked me in the eyes, his voice dropping to a whisper.
"Fraud.
Laundering. Crimes so deep they'd ruin lives if exposed. And the worst part is, it involves people in very high places." The air in the cabin felt suffocating. My mind was a storm of fear and disbelief. My husband was alive, but the life we once shared was gone forever. We were standing in the ruins of trust and in the shadows of danger. Suddenly, a noise outside shattered the silence. Twigs snapping. Footsteps approaching. David's face turned pale. He motioned for me to stay quiet and crouched near the window. I followed his gaze. Two dark silhouettes moved through the trees, flashlights cutting through the night. "They found us," he hissed. Panic surged through me. "What do we do?" "Back door," he whispered, grabbing my hand.
Now.
We slipped out the rear exit, running into the thick woods. Branches scratched my face, roots tangled under my feet, but adrenaline pushed me forward. David held my hand tightly, guiding me through paths only he seemed to know. Behind us, voices called out, growing louder. Where did they go? Search the trees. We didn't stop until we reached the edge of the lake, the moonlight shimmering on the water. David pulled me behind a cluster of rocks, both of us panting. My heart hammered so loudly, I thought it would give us away. They're not going to stop, David whispered, his arm around me protectively. They'll keep hunting, which means we need to move fast. Move fast? Where? I gasped. To the only person I still trust, he said. I narrowed my eyes. You just told me not to trust anyone. He gave a humorless smile. Almost no one. But there's one man, an old friend from years ago. A retired judge. If anyone can help us, it's him. My head spun. A judge? This was spiraling into something far bigger than I could handle. But as I looked into David's desperate eyes, I knew I didn't have a choice. All right, I whispered. But if this is another trick, if you're hiding more from me. He gripped my face gently, forcing me to meet his gaze. I swear, Claire, this is the only way to keep us alive. Before I could respond, a gunshot cracked through the night. The bullet struck the rocks inches above our heads, showering us with fragments. I screamed, ducking into David's arms. They're here, he shouted. We ran again, this time along the shoreline, the sound of boots and shouting growing closer. My lungs burned, my legs ached, but fear kept me moving. Finally, we reached his car hidden under a tarp near the woods. David yanked it open. Get in. The engine roared to life, and we sped down the dark, winding road. I looked behind us, half expecting headlights to appear at any moment. Only then did the crushing weight of reality sink in. My husband was alive, but now I was entangled in a deadly game I didn't understand. And there was no turning back. The road stretched endlessly before us, the headlights cutting a narrow path through the darkness. My pulse still hadn't settled from the gunshot, and every time the tires hit a bump, I jumped. David's hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles were white. Where are we going? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. To Judge Harris, David said, eyes fixed on the road. He's retired now, but he knows the law better than anyone. More importantly, I know he's honest. He'll help us. The name sounded vaguely familiar. I remembered him from years ago, a stern yet kind man with a reputation for fairness. Still, doubt gnawed at me. Could anyone really be trusted now? Hours later, as dawn painted the sky pale pink, we pulled up to a secluded farmhouse. David knocked 3 times in a rhythm that seemed rehearsed. After a tense silence, the door opened to reveal an older man in a robe, his silver hair messy from sleep. David. Judge Harris blinked in disbelief. Good God, boy, I thought you were dead. David stepped inside quickly, pulling me with him. That's the idea. The judge shut the door, looking between us with concern. You'd better start talking. And so David did. He told Harris everything, how his business partners had been laundering money, using his company as a front, and how, when he discovered it, they had decided to silence him permanently. How he had staged his death with the help of a trusted contact at the morgue. And how now they were after me, convinced I had whatever evidence he had hidden. Judge Harris listened silently, his sharp eyes never leaving David's face. When he finally spoke, his words were grave. You understand, David, if what you say is true, you're up against powerful men. Men with influence. Men who won't hesitate to destroy anyone in their way. I know, David said firmly. That's why I need your help. We have the evidence, but we need to bring it forward the right way. My head snapped toward him. Wait, you do have the evidence? David's gaze softened. Yes. I couldn't tell you before. It was too dangerous. But it's hidden, and if we get it to the right hands, we can end this. The judge leaned back, sighing heavily. All right. I'll help, but you must be prepared. Once this comes out, your lives will never be the same. For the first time in days, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this nightmare could end. Maybe we could finally breathe again. But hope is fragile. That night, as we tried to rest in one of the farmhouse's spare rooms, a crash shattered the silence. Windows broke, doors slammed, voices shouted. "They found us!" I gasped, clutching David's arm. The judge burst into the room, holding a shotgun. Out the back.
Go.
We scrambled through the dark hall, David pulling me toward the back door. Bullets ripped through the walls, men shouting orders. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it would burst. Outside, we dove into the fields, the tall grass swallowing us as we crawled. David held my hand, guiding me, whispering, "Stay low." Behind us, Harris's voice thundered. "You'll have to get through me first." Shots fired, dogs barked, chaos reigned. And then, a sudden, blinding flash of headlights cut across the field. Dozens of vehicles roared in, their sirens piercing the night. Red and blue lights flooded the darkness. "FBI, drop your weapons." I froze, staring in shock. Men in suits and tactical gear swarmed the property. The criminals, caught off guard, tried to flee but were quickly surrounded. Guns clattered to the ground as the agents moved in. I turned to David, breathless. "What? How?" He gave me a tired but triumphant smile. "The judge called them. He had a secure line. I knew we could trust him." For the first time, relief washed over me like a tidal wave. It was over. Days later, the courtroom was packed. The evidence David had hidden, ledgers, emails, recordings, was presented in full. Powerful men who had once seemed untouchable now sat pale and sweating as the truth came crashing down around them. And then came the moment that silenced the room. Judge Harris, presiding temporarily for the hearing, opened an envelope David handed him. Inside were photographs and documents so damning that even the defense lawyers had no words. Harris let out a booming laugh, shaking his head. "Well," he said, his voice echoing in the chamber, "Gentlemen, it looks like your little empire is finished." The criminals hung their heads, defeated. The gallery erupted in murmurs, some gasping, some cheering. I looked at David, tears brimming in my eyes. For so long, I had grieved, doubted, feared. But now, watching justice being served, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks: peace. Outside the courthouse, the sunlight felt warmer than ever. David wrapped his arm around me, pulling me close. "I'm sorry for everything I put you through," he whispered. I leaned into him, my heart finally steady. "You came back to me. That's all that matters." He kissed my forehead. "No more secrets. From now on, we face everything together." And for the first time since the funeral, I believed him. Our life would never return to what it had been, but as we walked hand in hand down those courthouse steps, I knew one thing for certain. We had survived. We had won. And together we were free.